Greetings, I'm Jeff Rhodes with Crossroads Consulting, where we help businesses outsource, grow, and protect their assets. The first episode in our Tales from the HR Crypt segment is Case of the Weird Interview. Now, this is a candidate. These are actual HR cases. This candidate's the perfect candidate, but something goes really weird and wrong during the interview, enough that they pass on this particular candidate. Enjoy.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Billy Rhodes and Jeff Rhodes with Crossroads Consulting. We are launching a new little series. I'm going to steal a title from our special guest today. It's called Tales from the HR Crypt. So our thought process here is through our XR Insights, we provide you with a lot of great business stories and success stories and what to do with business. I thought we'd mix it up with a little entertainment and throw in some weird HR stories. However, there's going to be a learning point here, a lesson here of what to do to prevent them, possibly what to do, what to need to handle them. So
this is like an edutainment.
Edutainment, yes.
Video.
Yes, edutainment, absolutely. So our special guest today is a friend of ours that we've known for a long time, Stacy Burns. She has been in the HR industry for a long time, and we have shared some great stories in the past. So I asked her if she'd be a special guest to launch this edutainment series, if you want to call it. So welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, appreciate you coming on board. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our little edutainment series here and talk about some of the cases that you've had that we thought would be very entertaining. The first one that you have here that we're going to talk about, which I think it kind of starts the whole HR process off when you're dealing with a company, and that is a weird interview is the way we're titling this. You just never know what you're going to get when you're sitting there talking to people, and usually they interview pretty well, but it's what you learn over the next 30 to 90 days that turns out to be a little weird. But why don't you go ahead and kick this one off here and tell us about this interview you had.
Well, first off, I'll start out by saying no matter how well seasoned you are at interviewing, people are a grab bag. Sometimes you just never know what you're going to get.
Like a box of chocolates, right?
Absolutely. Forrest Gump's mom said it best. Life is like a box of chocolates, and you never know what you're going to get. So I was with a medium-sized organization, and we were looking for a director of transportation. So this role would do routing and be over our drivers, as well as manage the shipping dock. And of course, it came with certain requirements. And we had a handful of candidates that made it through the pre-screen, and we had finally selected the finalists to come on site. So this gentleman showed up. For funsies, we'll just call him Paul. And Paul was dressed appropriately, and first impressions, good handshake, nice demeanor, pleasant. And as we began to go through the interview process, which was with multiple individuals, both in HR as well as throughout the leadership levels, some things began to surface throughout the course of the interview. So I'm going to tell my personal interview. And this is where I think it really did go from mundane and typical into the bizarre and weird category. And so I'm in the process of interviewing. I'm asking him simple questions about his past experience. Give me a time you were in this type of situation. And he goes off on a tangent and starts describing how he has a lot of aches and pains. He reaches in his interior suit jacket, pulls out what appears to be a little Ziploc baggie, and does that so that it opens up, and in this baggie is a plethora of pills.
Oh my.
And so that was definitely a little concerning, given the fact, again, this is a transportation director. It falls under DOT, you highly regulated, and of course you want a leader that's going to lead by example. So then we were talking about something else. Somehow or another, I managed to regain my focus. We moved on, and he started staring into space, and he's looking around my office. And I guess his eyes fell on a calendar, a wall calendar that I had that had a picture of a cat. And out of the blue, he says, "You know what cats are good for?" And, and I'm thinking, okay, it's just going to be a joke. And he said, the only thing cats are good for is to bury them in the ground up to their neck and then mow over them to see if your mower blades are sharp enough.
No way.
Absolutely. That one took me a little bit longer to absorb and reprocess. So then the next point where it really went south is he was describing an employee situation that he was in, and he was using a lot of analogies and colorful language, I think maybe in an attempt to break the ice and be funny and interject some humor. But he said something about a Taiwanese hooker was the analogy that he used. Well, that was a huge red flag, given that he was going to be in a leadership position over a very diverse workforce.
Oh
So
my.
we've got a bit of a slur here, and I'm thinking this is getting bad.
Like, how do I get out of this, right?
Yeah.
Well, the camel, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, was when he explained that his girlfriend had to actually rent the car for him to make the trip for the on-site interview because he currently did not have a valid driver's license.
Oh my.
So at that point, were you just looking around, like saying, "Am I being punked?"
It occurred to me that there were hidden cameras, and I was thinking for sure there's got to be other people on the other side of the door laughing and listening.
You
But
probably remember Candid Camera, right?
exactly.
Right?
But
Yeah.
no, this was a bit shocking. So at this point, I'm troubleshooting in my brain while I'm trying to maintain professionalism and still engage in a somewhat of a conversation with the man. And I asked him if I could have a moment that I needed to step out. And I went and I gathered the senior leadership team because they were scheduled to interview this gentleman after me. And I explained to them the analogies that Paul had shared, and the not having a valid driver's license and the Ziploc bag of pills, and they were appalled as well as very entertained. And they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Honestly, at this point, I don't think it's worth investing any more of the team's time in vetting out this particular candidate because it's so obviously not a fit. He doesn't meet the qualifications. This is not the right culture fit. And we need to just save our time and his."
Yeah.
So how did you get out of that interview? I mean, how did you close it?
So they agreed, and I went back and I sat down and I said, "Paul, I really want to thank you for coming out and interviewing. Some things have come up. We really need to end the interview at this time. This is not. We've gathered enough information. Not trying to be hasty, but we want to be respectful of your time and ours. But this isn't going to work. And so please send me your travel expenses. Once you make it back, we'll reimburse you. It's been a pleasure." I walked him to the door, shook his hand, and
I know.
that was that.
So let me ask you, did you agree to pay his expenses before the interview? Like you had told him that? Okay. All right.
Yes.
So from an HR perspective, I can see ADA being an issue with the pills.
There absolutely have
I
been.
can see sexual harassment with
The hooker.
the hooker. Right.
Absolutely. Throw in the Taiwanese hooker. Now
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've got
Race.
ethnicity, race.
yeah. Yeah, and then of course the driver's license, not being able to qualify for a driver's license from an HR perspective, that might be precluding him from performing the job duties.
Well, it absolutely did, because in his role, he would be driving company vehicles from time to time.
Right.
And it was a prerequisite and an absolute
Right.
requirement to have a clean driving record and a valid driver's license. Otherwise, he would have never been able to perform all of his duties. And then if you take that out, and there was some accommodation that you reach in the interactive process, what does that demeanor and making light of that, what type of tone does that set for your team, for the team that you're leading? Like, these are the rules, but they don't apply to me, the leader. That didn't really work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
like the way you got out of the interview, because that's kind of delicate too, telling somebody that you're just not a fit,
Absolutely. And I was prepared, because a lot of candidates are going to stop you right there and say, what did I say? What did I do? You're basing this only on limited information. So, I mean, I was prepared to answer those questions, which would have been very honest and very candid and very direct, but professional and cordial.
I mean, you should have asked them about the cat thing. Have you ever done that?
What kind of mower did you use? Was it a Dixie chopper or what?
We could have went on for days there, but then I will say, at the end of the day, the leadership team, they gave me down the road, and they were like, I don't know what it is, but people just confess their sins to you. You get stuff out of people. I said, I don't know. Maybe they just feel comfortable, but sometimes there is such a thing as TMI.
Yeah. Now, hey, let me ask you this. All right. Let's say you have somebody interviewing this person and they say that and they don't know where to go, right? They're lost, right? And so instead of saying something that could be a liability of the company, it's good to excuse themselves and then go seek counsel through, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I know you weren't doing that. You were just telling leadership you're not meeting with this guy. But in their case, somebody that's a newer interviewer could do that.
Absolutely. Newer interviews, we often get derailed when we start making conversation, chit chat that seems friendly enough. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Are you married? Do you have kids? A lot of people use these as icebreakers. Those are actually inappropriate and oftentimes lead to illegal territory in an interview. And so
we could go on and on and on about the interview process. And you know what? We may hit you up on that. One of our HR or XR insights.
Once again, we are Crossroads Consulting. I'm Jeff. He's Billy. We're available to talk to you about any issues that come up with regards to your business. Our business model is to help you find solutions. There's no cost, there's no obligation to talk to us. You've seen some of the interviews that we've done. We have a lot of resources that we can bring to the table. We welcome you the opportunity to talk to you about your business and some of the challenges that you're facing now. We'll do our best to find the solutions. Again, there's no cost, no obligation.